What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 267 of Hashtag AskGSM here today for January 9, 2019, 1919. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. As always, if you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Send in a comment, or post a comment rather, on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So without further ado, let's get started here first with All Heart PWG from YouTube. Their first question was, do you think Batista will face Triple H at WrestleMania, even though Triple H is injured? And both are old and they're in their final days as competitors, and I believe this is the year that the match needs to happen. And if it's not at WrestleMania, do you think Batista's final match will be at this year's SummerSlam? Well, so here's the thing with the match and Triple H's status. I have heard nothing about Triple H's road to recovery since he initially got hurt 2 months ago at Crown Jewel. We've heard nothing. I completely forgot that he's even been on TV in that time. As an authority figure, he recently resurfaced on Raw a few weeks ago. He was on Raw this very same Monday night, just this past week on Monday Night on Raw. So I don't know if he's going to be wrestling. I would assume that the last that I heard of Triple H wrestling at WrestleMania is that it was all signs are a go for Triple H versus Batista. If it's not Triple H and Batista, I think the match really heavily depends upon whether Triple H can go or not. Because if not, then Batista, I don't see him coming back. Batista has said for years the only way he would come back to WWE to have one more match at like a WrestleMania is to do a match with Triple H. Beyond that, I don't think he has any interest in facing anyone from the current roster or someone that he's faced before, or even like a Brock Lesnar. Like, I always thought that would be a cool match, but even Batista said on the Talk is Jericho podcast a few years ago, he was like, yeah, no, Brock hits a little hard and I'd rather not get hurt, and it's just not a match that interests me right now. Triple H is the only person I want to face on my way out, and probably lose to Triple H, which makes more sense than Sting losing to Triple H a few years ago. That was just dumb. But when you consider that Batista is undefeated against Triple H honestly nowadays doesn't win all that often on TV. He lost to WrestleMania 34, WrestleMania 33, he lost to Seth Rollins. 32, he lost to Roman Reigns. 31, he beat Sting. So it makes honestly sense for him to beat Batista if they do face off at WrestleMania. I don't really care about the outcome. The match itself, like you said, they're both old. They're both, in the twilights of their respective careers. I don't expect the match to be an instant classic. I really do think that the match would benefit from a great build-up. It would have a better build-up than the match actually being like must-see from an in-ring standpoint. I fully, wholeheartedly believe that. So I'm not expecting like a full 5-star classic from Batista and Triple H at WrestleMania 35 if the match does indeed come to fruition. But I'm sure the build-up would be great, and they have history. Their last few matches, albeit fucking 14 years ago at this point, I thought were great. I love those series of matches between Batista and H back from 2005. Again, many, many years have gone by since then. Neither guy is remotely the same competitor they were back then, but I still do think, at least from a storytelling standpoint, it could be a really good match. So we'll see. So I would want to see it happen. I want to see the match happen. If Triple H, for whatever reason, can't go by WrestleMania, and he's got 3 months to recover and heal, we've seen no sign of him being hurt on recent WWE TV, but then again, he's not wearing like his gear, he's not wrestling, so bit of a different story. Would they bump it to SummerSlam? It's possible. It's possible. I think that Batista would rather go out at WrestleMania because, again, I've heard a lot of Batista interviews with Chris Jericho, with Chris Van Vliet, and all these other people saying that I want my last match to be at WrestleMania with Triple H. And he's not the guy to like hold up WWE for more money or whatever, but it's something that deep down he really, really wants and that he thinks makes the most sense. And quite honestly, it does. I mean, based off how he left the last time in 2014 and the tension teased between him and Triple H, and also the interaction they had at SmackDown 1000 a few short months ago, it makes sense from a storyline standpoint to do Batista and Triple H at WrestleMania. I cannot see Triple H facing anyone else at that show. Now, people are saying, oh, what about Shane McMahon? I have no fucking interest in a Triple H, Shane McMahon at this point. Maybe a few years ago when Shane first came back and they kind of teased tension between Triple H and Shane. At this point, I know they're kind of on the same page. They could always turn on each other before WrestleMania. I really just have no fucking interest. And I know that is also a bout between two part-timers, but I don't even really want to see Shane wrestling. And I doubt that would happen anyway, because Shane's doing this current thing with The Miz. It looks like we might be getting Shane versus The Miz at WrestleMania. That's fine. If it gets Miz in a prominent match on the card, I have no complaints about that whatsoever. I doubt the match would be amazing, but it could be some fun as a fun undercard outing. Selfishly speaking, considering there's a good chance I might be at WrestleMania, I want to see Batista wrestle. I'm a huge Batista fan. He was in the main event of the first ever WWE show I went to 10 years ago, a SmackDown taping where he faced Matt Hardy in the main event of the show. So it would be cool to go full circle in New York at MetLife with him facing Triple H. So I want to see it happen. Will it happen? It remains to be seen. They might not start building towards that until at least the Rumble, if not a little soon afterward. I don't know how they would get there. I think Batista coming back in the Rumble match would be cool, considering his history in the match and how he was booed out of the building when he won 5 years ago. I do not think that would be the case if that happened this time around. So that's what I would do, but it also depends on Batista's movie schedule. Can he even do the match? I saw today, actually, this morning, that he got signed up. He signed up to do another role in a movie called Dune or whatever. Not Pete Dunne, but some other movie. So we'll see if he can even do it. If Triple H is healthy and if Batista would be available for it. His second question, what is a more likely main event for WrestleMania? Charlotte Flair versus Ronda Rousey or Becky Lynch versus Ronda? Or could there even be a triple threat between the three? I could see it going really any one of those three ways. A triple threat, well, first of all, the least wanted option would be Charlotte versus Ronda. And even saying that kind of, it's a stretch because the match they had at Survivor Series was great. And Charlotte and Ronda at one point was my WrestleMania main event. That makes the most sense to do. But now it's number 3 on my list of matches I want to see at WrestleMania between the three options that you presented, if only because Becky Lynch got hot out of nowhere. You have to have her in the main event. How do you not do Becky versus Ronda in some form or fashion at WrestleMania after their match and the build-up they had leading up to Survivor Series? Could they blow it off at fucking Elimination Chamber or Fastlane? Sure, but that would be a total waste, so I hope not. Now, that being said, the triple threat makes a lot of sense. They kind of threw us for a loop on SmackDown this week with Becky winning the three-way. So it's Becky and Asuka at the Rumble. I find it very hard to believe they would have Becky lose to Asuka and then resurface later on in the night to win the Women's Rumble. I find that very hard to believe. I really do. That would be the best option. But are you going to hurt Becky's momentum by having her get pinned only to win the Rumble? And I think that kind of makes up for it, maybe. I see Charlotte winning the Rumble at this point. I really do. I see Charlotte winning the Rumble and Becky becoming champion again. I don't know why they took the title off her to begin with if that was the case, just to give Asuka a fucking month-long reign. But I see Becky becoming champion, Charlotte winning the Rumble, and obviously Rousey retaining over Sasha Banks. And then Charlotte has to choose between getting the belt back from the woman she can never beat this past summer, Becky Lynch, or going after the woman she could also not beat at Survivor Series, Ronda Rousey. I don't know how that would become a triple threat. Maybe she chooses to face both, and I guess. I don't really want to see an Undisputed Championship match. I don't. People have, petitioned that to me. Someone even said that to me on Twitter this morning. I don't like the idea of both belts being on the line. Maybe a non-title match, but I think both brands benefit from having a champion on their show. The tag team championships with the women, I'm fine with that being a co-branded thing because they don't have enough women to justify doing a tag team division on each show. But there's a lot of women on Raw. There's a lot of women on SmackDown. Sasha Banks and Bayley never see the fucking light of day in that title picture, except for recently when Sasha became the number 1 contender. But before that, they had not even sniffed the title scene in over a year. So how would that be solved by having a joint women's division between Raw and SmackDown? I don't think that would solve anything. I don't think they would even come close to becoming champions. Same thing with Asuka. I think both brands benefited. There's a lot of women that benefit from having 2 separate women's divisions and 2 separate championships. So I don't like that idea. A triple threat isn't the worst option because it could still be a great match, But the more likely main event for WrestleMania is a three-way, because that's the story they've been telling. I would rather see Becky and Ronda straight up in the WrestleMania main event. I don't think you need a three-way. I don't think you need a four-way. I don't think you need a fucking ladder match. Straight up, Ronda, Becky, WrestleMania main event. That's what I want to see. I think they got to squeeze Charlotte in there because they feel that they have to, and they've also kind of told a story with her. So it's not exactly random, but I think after what they pulled at Survivor Series, which wasn't their fault, but the switch and bait, the bait and switch with Becky getting hurt and then putting Charlotte in there instead, we still need to see Becky and Ronda one-on-one, and why not at WrestleMania in the main event? That's my question. Emmanuel A. from YouTube. Brandy Rhodes at the All Elite Wrestling Rally promised that wrestlers will receive equal pay regardless of gender. There's been some online debate over whether this means everyone will be paid the same, or rather men and women of the main event and mid-card scenes will both get paid respective of their status evenly. Adding to the debate, is Cody and the Young Bucks' claim that there will be not any quote-unquote set tiers of wrestlers, meaning that someone could shift from a main event star to a jobber role and vice versa at any given time. Any thoughts on how this method of booking and salary would work? So first of all, with the money thing, the men and women getting paid equally is obviously a given. That should happen. I don't know why that it doesn't happen now. I know AJ Lee posed a question about that years ago. Oh, we get paid a lot less than the men. Like, not significant, not like a little bit less, but like significantly less, according to AJ Lee. And she would know better than anybody, because she was hotter than any other star from 2012 to 2015 for the most part, and her merchandise was selling a lot. She probably sold more merchandise than probably any other woman up to that point, for the most part. And she still felt that she was being slighted pay-wise. So, that being said, I think women and men getting paid evenly and equally in this new promotion, All Elite Wrestling, makes a lot of sense. Now, well, my question is exactly what you posed as well. When I saw the whole, everyone gets paid evenly, okay, does that mean like a Chris Jericho gets paid the same amount as like a MFJ, or what's his name, MJF, or whatever his name is? Or fucking Joey Janela gets paid the same as... I mean, I guess Pac isn't that much bigger of a star than Joey Janela, but he is. I mean, Pac is a pretty big get for AEW. That's a great get. I'll talk more about that momentarily, but that's an amazing get for the AEW brand. So, I don't know how that's going to work. I do understand how it currently works. I've never worked for WWE, so I don't know for a fact. But based off how everyone has largely seen it over the years and how Cody and the Young Bucks have made it seem, that in companies like that, the main event stars get paid more. Well, of course they fucking do. They're doing more media, they're traveling more, they're on the road more. They're not going to get paid, a fucking AJ Styles is not going to be paid the same as a Zack Ryder, because Zack Ryder doesn't really do media. The guy wrestles on main event. Why the hell should he get paid more as much as AJ Styles? Now, obviously, AEW is not going to be working that way. We'll see. We know nothing about the show. We know nothing about how they're going to have a weekly television show, or how the fuck this is going to work. So if it's just one giant roster, one giant dream roster, and they're all having matches every few months at these, shows like Double or Nothing and the other Jacksonville show they teased, then I guess that makes sense. But in the long run, I don't think first of all, I don't think there's going to be many losers. In terms of star power, Jericho is a much bigger name than anyone else that is currently signed up for the promotion, including Cody and the Young Bucks. I know he doesn't exactly have to be attached to AEW. I talked about that last week. I figured Jericho would sign on. It kind of feels like he wants to be a part of something relevant and wants to help change the world, brother. We'll see. I really have no desire to see Chris Jericho in fucking main events, but on paper, the guy is a significantly bigger star than anyone else on that roster. So, is he getting paid the same as a Joey Janela or an MJF or a fucking Conrad Thompson? How is this going to work? That's what I'm curious about. So, I guess we'll soon see. The male and female thing makes sense. I have no issues with that. I'm all for that. The same thing, the pay scale thing. You know what? Maybe they can afford to do that because this guy's fucking loaded. Tony Khan, Shahrir Khan, whatever his name is, the backers of this new promotion. Maybe they can afford to do that. Maybe they can afford to pay everyone the same amount, which is great. That is awesome. But I don't know, it seems different, which is maybe for the best. Maybe it's absolutely for the best in making things different and changing up the way that the wrestling industry works. And no one would know better than Cody and the Young Bucks, who have been in this for a long time. Cody has wrestled everywhere, from Ring of Honor to New Japan to Impact to even WWE, of course. He knows how the certain pay scales work and how it should be in his mind. So, again, I don't know how they're going to pay themselves and all this other stuff. I have no idea. Their method of booking, again, I can't really question it. They said a lot in that rally on Tuesday about their method of booking. All like, whoa, wins and losses will matter now more than ever before. And that's great because they're telling people exactly what they want to hear. I want to hear that type of stuff, but we got to see it be put in action. And we won't really know until like a few shows in. We won't really know, like, oh, Double or Nothing, everything they said is true. Like, we need a string of shows to really base our judgment off of. Like, do wins and losses really matter? Like, that's what I'm thinking. I don't think it's going to work the way the WWE works, with like a main event scene, a mid-card scene, and like a jobber scene. Like, I think the people that they're going to be bringing in, I would assume, will all be big stars. I mean, obviously, they have a lot of money behind them if they're bringing in Jericho, Pac, and all these other people. At this point, I'll talk about Kenny Omega a little later on, but I don't think they're bringing in, like, loser. I mean, I guess they could, but we'll see how it works. We'll see how it is. Now, after seeing what happened on Tuesday, I mean, again, this is only one day, this is only one rally, but I am more optimistic for the future of the AEW than I was even a week ago when they initially announced it. In terms of people maybe jumping from WWE to go to AEW, that they could, if they see that they can make more money over there. Same thing with Impact and Ring of Honor and New Japan. Like, if people see that they can make more money over in AEW and be a part of something with a lot of buzz behind it, then maybe they'll, have more of an incentive to leave WWE. Like, I think of a Zack Ryder, a guy who loves WWE inside and out, yet has been treated like a loser for close to a fucking decade now. He's never had any desire to leave. Maybe until now. He is very good friends with Cody. And if he sees that he's going to make infinitely much more money, let's say that, much more money than he would in WWE as a jobber, then yeah, he'd be an idiot to not jump. Because why wouldn't he want to be with his friends, with Cody, the Young Bucks, and be a part of something cool and finally get a chance to shine, which I think he would. I don't think he would flounder in AEW. I think Cody realizes that the guy is no loser and that he deserves to shine in WWE. Or rather in AEW. WWE too, but I think AEW would give him more of a chance. So again, I'll talk about that a little later on when I break down my roster for AEW. But yeah, we'll see how it works. So far, I'm not exactly sure how the whole pay scale and the booking thing will work, but I guess we'll see in due time once we see Double or Nothing in place, that come to fruition, and other shows thereafter. At RJ_Marceau from the Twitter machine, his question was, which NXT UK superstar besides Mustache Mountain and Pete Dunne do you think can make it big on the main roster? We were talking about this over text, how he's kind of become a fan of NXT UK in recent weeks, and I can't blame him. I've been watching the show since the launch, and it's been really, really good. It's gradually won me over. Once you kind of get a feel for the roster and for each person on the roster and the storylines and the feuds and what each person is capable of, now I'm into it. After kind of seeing all of that and following all the storylines, NXT was kind of the same way. NXT, when it first launched, I was kind of hesitant to check it out because I knew nobody and didn't know any of the storylines, but after a while, once you kind of get immersed in a lot of the angles, then it's like, okay, now I see what everyone was talking about here. With NXT UK, it's very similar. It airs on Wednesday afternoons on the WWE Network. Not a lot of people talk about it or know about it, and they got their first takeover coming up on Saturday this weekend. I think it's an early show, too. I think it's airing at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which is cool. So, I think I'll be working that day, but that's a cool, bonus for anyone who can watch it on Saturday afternoon as opposed to Saturday night. But anyway, the NXT UK roster, anyone that I see from that roster making it big on the main roster potentially. I mean, obviously you said Mustache Mountain, you said Pete Dunne. I think all three of those guys could be big stars on Raw or SmackDown if booked properly. So not counting those guys, I said this to RJ over text yesterday, I love Jordan Devlin. The guy has really grown on me. He even said it over text that I once called him a Finn Balor ripoff, a Finn Balor wannabe. And that is accurate. I did call him that at one point. I think a lot of people did. But since then, he has really won me over. His mic skills have improved. He's had really, really good matches. He had one great UK title match with Pete Dunne on a recent episode of NXT UK. Check it out if you haven't already. I think he could be a real big star. Jordan Devlin, if utilized properly, of course, assuming that's the case. Jordan Devlin, I'm a fan of. Fabian Eichner, I like a lot. I know RJ and I have discussed him before on NXT because he's been in NXT for like well over a year now and kind of like a jobber role. I think he's on NXT tonight with Marcel Bartel, and they're in a tag team now, as seen on NXT UK. Fabian Eichner, the tag team is cool. Fabian Eichner on his own, I think, can be a real big star. The guy's got a great look. It seems like he can talk based off from what I've heard, and he can go in the ring. The guy looks like a fucking star. So Fabian Eichner is one to watch out for sure. Mark Andrews, I've always really liked. I think he can be a great babyface on Raw or SmackDown or even in the Cruiserweight division. He's made a handful of appearances on 205 Live in the past. He'd be a great staple on that show if they decided to put him there. I like Mark Andrews a lot. Flash Morgan Webster, I've kind of warmed up to too. He's a good talent. Joe Coffey, RJ said he's not a fan of. I like Joe Coffey. I like Gallus. I like the faction Gallus. Joe Coffey of the three is my favorite. Wolfgang kind of just bores me to tears, and Mark Coffey is a bit generic. Maybe just because Joe Coffey's gotten more chances to shine, has been showcased more than Mark. But I like Joe Coffey a lot. I'm looking forward to him and Pete Dunne on Saturday. I'm sure there's more. I could not give two shits about Joseph Connors or whatever the fuck his name is, Connor Joseph. The guy with like the weird Mick Foley ear. I'm not a fan of his. He kind of bores me to tears. Dave Mastiff is a good talent. Eddie Dennis is a unique talent. The women obviously speak for themselves. I think Rhea Ripley can be a huge star on Raw or SmackDown's women's division. Toni Storm too, of course. That's kind of a given too, considering she won the fucking Mae Young Classic. But yeah, I'm a big Rhea Ripley fan. I'm a big fan of hers. I think she can go. She's shown a lot of potential and a lot of progress in the 1 year that she has since competed in the Mae Young Classic. So yeah, those are only a handful of the stars, I think can really do well. That's a tongue twister. Those are a handful of the stars that I think can do well, rather. There we go. On Raw or SmackDown at some point down the road. His second question, thoughts on NXT UK TakeOver Blackpool. I'm looking forward to it. I said a couple months ago that I thought that for the NXT UK guys, maybe they can try to fix, incorporate one of their matches into the NXT takeovers, but it looks like they're getting their own takeover altogether, and that's great. It's emanating from Blackpool. It's going to have a great crowd. The card has been built up well. I think currently on the card, there's only 4 matches, the last time I checked. We had the finals of the NXT UK Tag Team Title Tournament, the crown of the inaugural NXT UK Tag Team Champions. I know Mustache Mountain is in there. The other team, this was taped a while ago. I don't read the results or the spoilers. The other team will be decided and determined tonight on NXT UK, so you'll find out probably right after you listen to this, if you haven't already figured it out. So there's that match, which should be great, because anything involving Mustache Mountain is must-say. Pete Dunne and Joe Coffey for the WWE United Kingdom Championship, which should be a great main event. Toni Storm and Rhea Ripley for the NXT UK Women's Championship. Again, their first match was great. This match would be even better because the first match, I think, was plagued by injury. I think Toni Storm got hurt halfway through, so that should be good. And then also a no disqualification match between Dave Mastiff and Eddie Dennis. So far, so good. The card looks solid on paper. I think it's a 2-hour show. I would find it hard to believe they would have a takeover that would be a fucking hour, so I assume it's 2 hours. We'll see how it kind of shapes up if they add any more matches on today's editions of NXT UK. Like I said, I can't watch live, but I will be watching soon after I get home on Saturday night. But yeah, it should be a great show for sure. At Reborn again from Twitter. So, who do you think will be the biggest signings AEW ends up making before their Double or Nothing show, which takes place, I think, over Memorial Day weekend, May 25th in Las Vegas? So I'm just going to come out and say it right now. I think Omega is AEW bound. And I'm not talking just because, Ringside News said it and all these fucking sources. Omega's going to AEW. No, I'm not saying that because of the reports. I'm saying that because of after Jericho showed up and Pac showed up at that rally on Tuesday, that means obviously they have money behind them for one thing, which we kind of already knew, but now it's almost certain. Not only that, but also because I think Omega would want to be with his friends, and he knows that he would be a big star there. Like, obviously, Cody and the Young Bucks will not be competing for every top title on their brand, on their promotion, because that would make no fucking sense. It would be Jeff Jarrett 2.0 from TNA from years ago, all over again. So why would you want to do that? I think Kenny Omega is headed to AEW. I would not complain about him in WWE because I think they would treat him like a big star. And I can't say it's now or never because he could always go back in a couple years. With Cody and the Young Bucks, I read that they signed 5-year contracts with AEW, basically eliminating any chance they ever go to WWE. They could always go in 5 years. By that point, they'll be like closer to 40. So they could still make the jump at some point in 2024, but will they be as big of stars as they are now? I don't think so. I really don't. But that being said, though, Omega, how long of a contract would he sign? Could he still go to WWE down the road? And again, I think the big reason why Omega would go to WWE, he's not a big money guy anyway, from what I understand, but is because of the cash they would be offering him. I heard, obviously, and it's, you don't have to read anything to know this, but obviously WWE is making a huge offer to Kenny Omega for him to come over. Is he going to accept? At this point, I was getting the feeling a couple days ago that Omega was WWE bound. At this point, I don't have that feeling at all. I think Omega is absolutely headed to AEW. If they have Jericho and Pac on board, that means these guys are legit. They know what they're doing. They're signing the big stars. They will need big stars. They need Kenny Omega to succeed. Pac is great. Jericho's great, but the guy's fucking almost 50. They can't build around Chris Jericho. Maybe Pac. He's a great get, but they need someone to build around, and it would have to be Kenny Omega, assuming he doesn't go to WWE or re-signs with New Japan. So I think Kenny Omega will be their first big signing coming out of when his contract expires at the end of the month. And then he headlines Double or Nothing, probably with, I guess they could do him and Jericho again, but, been there, done that. I would rather see Omega and Pac. That would be fucking awesome. But they've already teased Adam Page and Pac, so that's one match. Kenny Omega would need a pretty big match, but anyway. So Omega, Marty Scurll's a given. He's still with Ring of Honor for right now. His contract expires, I think, next month, if not in the next few months, maybe April. But when he's done there, he is absolutely headed to AEW. And I'll throw a random name into the hat as well. Goldberg. I think Goldberg could show up in AEW too. Now, I know that's a random name. Like, why the fuck would anyone want to see Goldberg in this new upcoming promotion? But I saw that Goldberg, people were making a big deal on Twitter a couple days ago about how Goldberg was liking tweets from All Elite Wrestling on Twitter. Now, that's no coincidence. I think when there's smoke, there's fire. So I think Goldberg could be AEW bound. There's a pretty good chance. Goldberg, unlike Kenny Omega, is a big money guy. You offer him the right amount of money to come on in, he's definitely going to do it. That's how WWE brought him back in the first place a few years ago. And honestly, his run was great. I was not a big fan of how he was used and pretty much it made everyone else look like a loser. But for Goldberg, it was great, and it was the run that he should have gotten a fucking decade and a half ago. But yeah, I think Goldberg could show up in AEW, like how Sting showed up in TNA. That was different because Sting was a full-on regular from that point forward. I don't think Goldberg would be a regular for AEW, but he could be their Brock Lesnar. He could be their Triple H, who shows up every once in a while and has a big match with a member from their show. Goldberg and Jericho, 15 years after their backstage brawl, legitimate backstage brawl. Maybe they finally have a match in AEW. What about Goldberg and Omega? Not exactly a match that would excite me, but it's a big draw, I would assume. So I would assume, I'm not going to say that Goldberg is headed to AEW, but keep an eye out for him. He's one to be, he's one to watch for because I do think Goldberg could be AEW bound before long. John's second question here, who could you see being big surprises, or rather surprise entrants, in the 2 Royal Rumble matches this year? A few different people I got on my radar. Obviously, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are probably givens. I don't know if either guy is ready to return yet. From what I understand, I have not read that either guy has been clear to compete as of now. I know Zayn said on a recent Talk Is Jericho podcast, I'm not anywhere close to being brought back or returning. But that was recorded months ago. So who knows? I think Sami Zayn has a better chance of showing up in the Rumble than Kevin Owens. I think Kevin Owens has a while before he can come back, which is why I was surprised they started airing vignettes for his return. So Sami Zayn and or Kevin Owens. Aleister Black, I talked about a few weeks ago, maybe last week, in terms of NXT people who could show up in the Rumble. That would be pretty cool. They got to have one NXT guy, and not counting the call-ups either, like an EC3 or something. Aleister Black would be definitely cool to have in there, and have him eliminate a bunch of people, have a strong showing before getting beaten. If not, win the whole fucking thing. That'd be amazing, but I don't see that happening. Aleister Black. The Rock? Honestly, not that unlikely. Not that unlikely at all. Just because The Rock has been rumored for a while to be wrestling at WrestleMania. I don't think that's a lock. I heard, he was going to face Roman Reigns, but now that's been thrown out the window since Roman got hurt or got sick or whatever. I think Rock would still work the show anyway in a different match. Probably against Brock Lesnar or against like a Triple H or something. But he could always show up in the Rumble first. I know he was the odds-on betting favorite at one point to win the Rumble, which is fucking ridiculous, but don't count out The Rock. Don't count out the great one. So I would throw The Rock in there. Maybe Shawn Michaels. He's already returned once to the ring, so why not a second time in the Royal Rumble? Why the fuck not? For the women, Toni Storm would be kind of a given just because she won the Mae Young Classic. We got Kairi Sane and Ember Moon in last year's Women's Rumble, so Toni Storm showing up, having a good showing, kind of makes sense to me. Women from the past, the Bellas are kind of a given. I would assume they'll be back soon anyway. They kind of came back for that one run in the fall and faced Ronda Rousey at Evolution, and that was it. But maybe they resurfaced in the Rumble. I wouldn't be surprised. Also, in terms of women from the past, I would include Eve in there. I would love to see Eve in the Women's Rumble. I know she was recently at the Performance Center doing some sort of like seminar with the women, and the guys too, actually, for that matter, in terms of self-defense or something like that. She has not wrestled since she left WWE 6 years ago. I would love to see Eve back, if only for a one-off. She was a great talent. We saw like fucking Kelly come back last year, so why not Eve? That's my question. So hopefully Eve is among the surprise entrants in this year's Women's Rumble. His third question, which Rumble match will main event the pay-per-view? The women's one, I think the men's one should have main evented last year, but I understand why they went with the women. Not only because it was history-making and it was, whatever. It was a history-making matchup and being the first ever Women's Rumble. It was because Ronda Rousey showed up afterwards. Let's face it. If Ronda Rousey did not debut, that match would not have closed the show. The men's match, I think at this point, should close the show. I would say Becky Lynch winning the Rumble going on to WrestleMania would be a great finish for the show. If Charlotte wins, that would end the show on a sour note. At least if they have Charlotte win halfway through the show, and then the men's Rumble, like a Rollins wins, or a McIntyre would be cool, someone like that. That would be a better close to the show than Charlotte winning. So as of right now, Charlotte's my pick to win the Women's Rumble. After finding out that we are getting Asuka versus Becky Lynch, after all, at the Royal Rumble. So I would assume that Becky Lynch will not be in the Rumble. She will not win the Women's Rumble, for that matter. And Charlotte will win instead. And I don't think that should close the show. So I would go with the Men's Rumble currently as the main event for that pay-per-view. At the Wrestle Guy from Twitter, how far do you think AEW will go? Do you think it can really get to the level of WWE and be a true competitor to WWE after all these years? No. Maybe in terms of quality, maybe in terms of making WWE light a flyer under their ass. Financially, probably not. Probably not. I know I was talking to RG about it last night that there are rumors they could end up on TNT. That would be fucking huge if that's true. That would be massive for AEW if they can get a television deal of that caliber. We'll see. I don't know what to believe right now. I don't think that will happen, but if it did, WWE, not that they would be in trouble, but they would have no choice but to acknowledge their competition. They do this all the fucking time. They see Ring of Honor as competition. They see New Japan as competition. They see TNA as competition, even all these years later. So for anyone saying WWE is the top of the monopoly and they're top of the wrestling industry, they see no one as a threat. That is far from the truth. They are certainly atop the wrestling industry and probably always will be. But that being said, that's not to say that they don't see these other companies as threats, because they definitely do. There's no doubt about it. They definitely do see Ring of Honor, New Japan, Impact, even the fucking smaller promotions as threats. Why do you think they try to buy out Progress and MLW and fucking Evolve and all these other promotions? Because they see them as threats. That's exactly what it is. Especially the UK scene. The UK scene has now cooled down significantly from where it was a few years ago because WWE snatched up almost all of their talent. Why do you think that whole the Define What Culture promotion cooled down a lot? Because WWE took like fucking half the roster. So, again, I don't see that happening with All Elite Wrestling, but I'm just saying that WWE obviously sees them as a threat. Regardless of the rumors that they were throwing people out last night wearing the All Elite shirts, I don't believe that. I do believe that people were wearing the shirts and they told them to cover up if they were on camera. That I could absolutely believe. Throwing people out or not letting people into the building because of what they were wearing, I feel like that's a bit of a stretch. I feel like that's a wrestling fan fucking making up shit. Until I see proof or video of this, I don't believe it at all. But anyway, I don't think they'll be a real competitor to WWE in terms of like money and finances and shit. I mean, AEW apparently has a lot of money backed behind it, which is huge. I don't see them ever being on the level of WWE, but I do see AEW at this point going fairly far. Again, we don't really know much. We don't even know where they're going to end up as of right now. They should have announced a television deal last night. Obviously, they're still in negotiations, so they didn't. But I still do think, considering the roster that they have so far, of who they've announced, AEW could go pretty fucking far with who they have on board, which is massive. Jericho, Pac, Joey Janela, MJF, Britt Baker leading the women's division, which I don't know how much women they can really sign, because all these women, like the best women in wrestling today, in my opinion, are almost all in WWE, NXT, or NXT UK. NXT snatched up almost everybody, from Io Shirai to Kairi Sane to Deonna Purrazzo to Chelsea Green. They fucking took everybody. Madison Reigns in Ring of Honor, Tessa Blanchard's in Impact. So, you know, they could always try to get those women to jump over at some point. Maybe fucking, what was her name? Allison K. Sienna from Impact? I guess. I don't give a fuck about her, but Priska Kelly, the one with the tampon fucking controversy going on right now, the bloody tampon. I guess they could try to get her. That's kind of a question mark for me. I'm not sure who they can bring in for their women's division. Even Tenille Dashwood, the former Emma, she's signed to Ring of Honor. She would be a great get, but she's in Ring of Honor. So I guess we'll see eventually. But anyway, yeah, I don't see them being a real competitor to WWE, like in terms of like, oh, going head to head on Monday nights, like in terms of ratings and shit. I don't see that being the case. I do see WWE taking this threat seriously, and I do see AEW putting everything they can into making this work. And I think they will. Honestly, I was not as sold as I am last week as I was, I wasn't as sold last week as I am right now, is what I should say. But after what I saw last night, I do think this promotion has promise for sure. His next question: if you had it your way, would you want Kenny Omega to come to WWE or go to AEW, and why? So I said earlier, I do think Kenny Omega is going to AEW. Selfishly, I want Kenny Omega in WWE. That's just because I'm a WWE mark. But I love the Elite guys. I love, Ring of Honor. It's not just because I'm a fucking diehard WWE guy and nothing else. I love all these other promotions. Selfishly, I just want Kenny Omega in WWE to see him against AJ Styles and Seth Rollins. Would he be utilized the way that he deserves to be utilized? I think so. I know that's a big bet, but I think he would be. I really do think he would be treated like a star the same way that AJ Styles was from the get-go in 2016. If they offer him probably more money than they offered Styles, and they promote him immediately to the main roster, and they bring him in like a big star, then I think he can go far. So I think Kenny Omega, that's not real. I mean, it's always something to worry about in terms of how they're going to handle these people. But I know there's very few people who have come over to WWE and have had the same success that AJ Styles has. But I think Kenny Omega could be among those elite few. Pun intended, elite few. I think Omega could be that guy. Now, I always envision Kenny Omega coming over to WWE with the Young Bucks. Obviously, that's not happening. But I still think he's a big enough name on his own to be a big star in WWE and not need the Young Bucks to complete his act. So I do think Kenny Omega is going to AEW, but if I had it my way, I would love to see him in WWE, just so I could see him at WrestleMania. And, just see him mix it up with AJ and Rollins and Bryan and Shinsuke and all these other people. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, do you think we're getting a heel Shane McMahon versus face Miz match at WrestleMania? I do. I don't see it going that way. I see Miz turning on Shane at some point. I could see Miz turning on Shane, getting a face Shane versus heel Miz. That's probably the more likely route, but I wouldn't mind a heel Shane versus face Miz. I know face Miz failed the first time back in 2012, 2013. I fucking get it. But I still do think that with enough momentum and enough crowd support, that face Miz could work. I do. And I think he's in a better spot of his career now than he was at the point when he initially turned 6-7 years ago. So I think it could work. I wouldn't mind that at all. I think Shane could be a very fun heel. It would also be the payoff to whatever the crown jewel bullshit was supposed to be when they initially seemed to turn Shane heel, but they didn't. So yeah, that's what my question would be. But yeah, heel Shane, face Miz, WrestleMania. I don't see a problem with it. Like I said earlier, I think it'd be a nice, prominent match to have on the WrestleMania card. And yeah, I would love to see it. Next question from Jeremy. Could you see us getting a Rusev versus Andrade Cien Almas versus Rey Mysterio versus Mustafa Ali versus Shinsuke Nakamura ladder match for the United States Championship at WrestleMania? Well, that's a little random. I don't see it going down exactly like that, but I don't know if we will get that. Probably not. But I would love to fucking see it, that's for sure. I would throw Samoa Joe in there too. Honestly, if we don't get John Cena and Samoa Joe at WrestleMania, which I just thought of right now, throw Joe in there too. Why the hell not? Just throw the entire SmackDown mid-card into one match. Because I don't see any of these guys getting a real prominent match at WrestleMania unless it's Mysterio and Andrade one-on-one for the United States Championship. That's what I would do. I would have Andrade beat Rusev for the championship between now and WrestleMania and have Andrade face Rey Mysterio for the title at WrestleMania. That's what I would do. I don't know what the fuck you would do with Nakamura and Rusev and Mustafa and Samoa Joe, but I guess that's one way to get everyone on the card without shoving them in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. But yeah, I don't think we're getting the match you proposed, but I would love to see it. If it's not Andrade versus Rey one-on-one, then I think a 5 or 6 man ladder match for the title would work just as well. If only because it would be awesome, and also because it prevents them from entering the loser-filled Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Next question comes from the one and only at Lex DeGiacomo from the Twitter machine. If you had to make up your own roster for AEW, what would it be? By the way, let everyone know we've been together for half a year now. Woohoo, I love you, baby. Hashtag manly in love. Yes, Alexis and I recently celebrated 6 months together, so shout out for Alexis for the greatest 6 months of my life. Could not be happier. Love to have you along as the greatest tag team partner that anyone could ever ask for. I had more to say about this on this subject on Instagram, so check out that post if you haven't already, and on Twitter just yesterday. So thanks to Alexis for that. But to answer her question, which is a glorious question, by the way, and of course I'm biased in saying that, but it is a very, very good question. I spent some time writing down a roster that I think would be great for AEW, like people that I would want to see in this company. So I wrote down a bunch of names, including people that have already been announced, including, obviously, Cody, the Young Bucks. Kenny Omega, I said earlier, I would love to see Kenny Omega in AEW if it's not WWE. I think Kenny Omega is going to AEW. And I should also say this, too. I'm including people on this list that you're going to be thinking to yourself, like, why the fuck would you want to see them in AEW? Like, they're a loser, like, they serve no purpose. Why the fuck would you care to see them? I just think that some of these people would make sense as members of the AEW roster. I really do. I don't even know if it's possible for a lot of these people. Some of these people will be under contract to their respective promotions for the next year or two. So it might be a while before we see any of these people in AEW, but in my personal opinion, I think any one of these guys or girl, I didn't include any girls here. I mean, Tessa Blanchard, I'll say. I would love to see Tessa Blanchard in AEW and Madison Rayne, but beyond that, I think any one of these people would be great additions to the AEW roster. But nonetheless, Cody, Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Chris Jericho, obviously, Joey Janela, MJF, Pac, SoCal Uncensored also signed on Tuesday night. Marty Scurll will become official, obviously sooner rather than later. Adam Page. Flip Gordon. I don't know when his Ring of Honor contract expires. Maybe this summer, if not next year. But he's been so close to the Bucks and to Cody for so long now. How could he not be in AEW at some point? Gordon was like their fucking shining star on the Being the Elite show. So I'd be very surprised if he didn't jump over at some point. Flip Gordon would definitely be all in on All Elite Wrestling if he was to jump over. Gallows and Anderson, I heard their contracts don't expire till later this year, but they're not doing diddly squat in WWE, so why not just go to AEW, to be honest with you? I think AJ staying right where he is in WWE. I think Nakamura will likely resign. He'd be another great get if he ever left WWE. Gallows and Anderson, I get the feeling that they could be leaving at some point 2019, and to AEW they go, no doubt about it whatsoever. The Revival, I know that might seem like a bit of a random pick, but I tweeted this out on Tuesday night where how awesome would it be, after the years of tension that have been teased between the Revival and the Young Bucks on Twitter, and Cody too, and all the fuck the Revival shit, the FTR shit, how great would it be to finally pay that off by having the Revival come to AEW and do like a tag team title series between those two teams? That would be fucking awesome. If we can't get in WWE, I need to see it in AEW. And based off their booking in WWE, I don't know if these guys would be opposed to leaving WWE for this new promotion. So I think the Revival in AEW would make a lot of sense. Dolph Ziggler too. I'm not a big Ziggler fan. I haven't been in a long time, but I've said for a long time now, Ziggler needs to leave WWE and try to go elsewhere and reinvent himself the same way that Cody did. And AEW, obviously at this point, would make the most sense. Ziggler and AEW mixing it up with Cody and Jericho and Omega and Pac and having all these awesome matches just makes way too much sense to not do. So definitely Dolph Ziggler. Again, I don't know when his contract expires, when he would be eligible to leave, but Ziggler in AEW would be a sight to see for sure. I included Zack Ryder. Again, people are going to be like, oh, why the fuck would you care about Zack Ryder coming to AEW? Because, like I said earlier, the guy's been underutilized for so long now. I think he would be given a real chance to shine in AEW. And I just see his Twitter, and it's so fucking sad. The guy's like, oh, still here, don't forget about me. It's so fucking sad. The guy's been a main event staple now. Not in the main event scene, but rather on main event for like 5 years, if not longer. He deserves better than that. He really does. It's so sad to see where he's, what he's become, and it looks like he's still having fun out there, but they are doing nothing with this guy. Absolutely nothing. So Ryder going to AEW, he's good friends with Cody. I think it would make a lot of sense. I think Ryder in AEW would be a cool thing for him. Again, I don't know when he can leave WWE. He might even be released at some point. But either way, I think him in that company would be great to see too. Kota Ibushi, given his history with the Young Bucks as part of the Golden Elite, I think he was a member of the Elite. I think he's an official member of the Elite, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure he's a member of the Elite. I think they had him join like late last year, maybe. I don't know. I know they had the Golden Elite, which was the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Kota Ibushi, but I'm not sure if he's a member of the Elite itself. I don't know, but I think Ibushi in AEW would be cool. The guy's a freelancer, goes where he wants. That would be awesome to see. Pentagon and Phoenix, they've been great for Impact and MLW in 2018 and so far in 2019, but I think them in AEW would also be awesome. Pentagon and Kenny killed it at All In. Pentagon would be, again, a lot of fun to see in AEW if Lucha is not brought back. Lucha seems to be done, unfortunately. I'm not sure if it's going to be renewed for a 5th season. I think it might be closing its doors for good in 2019, if it hasn't already. But Pentagon and Phoenix should be given the best platform possible to showcase their skills, and AEW might be it. And then a bit of a dream pick here, obviously CM Punk I would include. I've heard other people talk about that. I don't think it's happening. I don't think it's ever going to happen. This is purely fantasy booking, but CM Punk and AEW mixing it up with Kenny Omega, renewable rivalry with Chris Jericho and all these other people, Joey Janela, Pac, CM Punk versus Pac, CM Punk versus Kota Ibushi and Pentagon, Marty Scurll, Adam Page. I think that's money. I really do. I think they need someone like a Punk to really be seen as a threat to WWE. And a Punk, if he ever decided to come back, if it's not like a Ring of Honor, where, he obviously wrestled originally, Punk and AEW would be fucking money. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Punk as my dream pick to join the AEW roster. I do not see that happening at all. The other people, I think there's a good chance. Punk, definitely not, but I know he's good friends with the Bucks, and I would love to see it personally. At Scarlet One from Twitter, did you hear about the production truck that blew out the power at Impact's recent tapings? No, I did not hear about that, but that sounds like such an LOL TNA moment. And it sucks because Impact's been a great product throughout most of 2018 and now 2019. And I know they're on the Pursuit channel as of this week, and no one gets the fucking channel. But they did announce that Impact is also going to be airing on Twitch, their Twitch channel starting Friday night, which is cool. So that's one way to watch the product. But yeah, I did not hear about that until you brought it up to me, but that sounds like such an Impact thing to happen, and I feel bad for him, but at the same time, it's kind of funny. Their second question, did you hear anything about Wrestle Kingdom 13? Yeah, I read the results. I read people's thoughts on it. I listened to reviews. It sounded like an amazing show. I probably will not go back and watch anything from it. I heard Jericho and Naito was great. I heard Omega Tanahashi was great. I heard Ibushi and Ospreay was great. And I heard, what was the other match? I can't remember. I saw Kushida's entrance, the Back to the Future entrance. That was fucking awesome. I would love to see that in WWE. If the guy is indeed headed to WWE, that would be amazing. Absolutely amazing. But what was the other match? I know there was at least one more match. Jay White and Okada. I heard was great too. So I probably won't have the time to go back and watch anything from the show unlike past years. Maybe at some point, we'll see. But yeah, I heard it was an amazing show. Again, I just don't have the time to either watch it live or just even on repeat just because I have a lot of shit going on right now, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm just really, really busy, so I don't have the time. But I heard Wrestle Kingdom was amazing. I might go back at some point and check out the key matches from the show. Thoughts on Dean Ambrose's heel run so far? Somewhat underwhelming. Definitely underwhelming, I'll say that much. He's obviously a better heel than a babyface, and I've liked the feud with Rollins, but their TLC match was a fucking dud. Their Falls Count Anywhere match in the main event of Raw this week I thought was good, but he's not the heel that I thought he would be. And maybe it's the material, maybe it's Ambrose himself, maybe it's a little bit of both. But so far, I've not been all that impressed with Ambrose's heel work, so hopefully it can improve at some point. Maybe he's got to be given something to really, sink his teeth into, not this whole, the fans smell, I don't know, Bryan was given kind of questionable material to work with at the get-go. Maybe that was his own implementation, maybe that's his own material, I don't know, but Bryan's been hitting it out of the park since he turned heel 2 months ago. Ambrose, on the other hand, not so much. So hopefully he can heat it up before long, because right now he feels like just another guy on the roster, whereas when he first came back and then when he turned heel, he felt special. Now, there's nothing special about Dean Ambrose. He is slightly more interesting than he was as a babyface, and that's about it. Any wishes for the WrestleMania 35 card? Well, to have Rousey and Lynch main event, I guess you can include Charlotte in there. I wouldn't do that. I would do Charlotte and Asuka for the SmackDown Women's Championship and Rousey and Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. But either way, the women got a main event. No question about it. I heard Solomonster pitch the idea of doing a Styles-Rollins match, which actually does make a lot of sense based off the recent storyline of Triple H trying to fire up Seth Rollins and Vince trying to fire up AJ Styles. Maybe it's headed to a Raw versus SmackDown match at WrestleMania with Rollins winning the Royal Rumble, choosing AJ, then Drew goes on to win the Chamber and face Brock Lesnar for the belt. I do not care to see McIntyre and Strowman. I really don't. Strowman and Lesnar is bound to be a fucking snooze fest of the Rumble. I don't really care to see Lesnar and McIntyre. At this point, I think Lesnar is retaining the title of the Rumble. I really do. I hate to say that, but I think it's happening. But McIntyre and Lesnar would be something different. If it's not that, then Rollins and Lesnar makes sense. McIntyre and Strowman, whatever, on the undercard makes sense. Styles and Orton, I heard, was another shot, was another, potential matchup for WrestleMania. That would be really cool because it's never really been done before, aside from a one-off match on SmackDown 2 years ago. Maybe Daniel Bryan and John Cena. I don't really care to see that so much, but it would lead to the big number 17 for the big 17 for John Cena. It would be a great match. It gets Bryan in a prominent match at WrestleMania, so that's one option as well. And obviously, Batista versus Triple H is another match I want to see on that show. So that's my wish list so far for WrestleMania 35. And maybe even the ladder match that Jeremy was talking about earlier, or even Andrade versus Rey Mysterio straight up. Those are a few of the matches I want to see at WrestleMania this year for sure. Final question from @HardyDX fan. If the current group of talent is some of the best we've ever seen, then why has the product, especially Raw, been so poor lately? Are we as fans expecting too much because of how the talent, how talented everyone is? or how WWE has just gotten stagnant and lazy. Or has WWE just gotten stagnant and lazy, he's asking. I think it's more a matter of the latter than it is the former. Because like you said, I do agree. I think the roster now is as good as it's ever been, if not better. But at the same time, the booking is fucking atrocious. Raw especially has been abysmal for the last, many years now, but especially the last few months. There's really nothing out of the ordinary about Raw whatsoever. And it's really how these guys are used. Maybe it's a lack of motivation. I highly doubt that's the case, because even people with the motivation to be better are still held down to a certain degree. And I think that old quote from Kevin Nash or Chris Jericho, whoever said it, WWE, you're only going to be as good as they want you to be, which is so fucking true. Because Jinder was booked like a monster for 6 or 7 months, and he was as good as they wanted him to be. In the ring, he sucked, but he was still promoted like a top star. You kind of bought into him as a top star at some point, just because of how he was booked after a while. Despite the fact that he was atrocious, and they realized that was a mistake, took the belt off him, and now he's a loser again, as he should be. But that being said, people are only going to be as good as the company wants them to be. So does the fault really lie on the talent? I think if you look at the talent that we have at this present moment, and if you were to utilize them the way they deserve to be utilized, and allowed them to shine and didn't hold them back, I think that you would get a much better show from week to week on Raw and SmackDown. SmackDown's still solid. Raw really needs the help right now. But yeah, WWE with their booking formulas has gotten really lazy, really stagnant, especially with Raw. I don't know what the fuck has to change. A lot of stuff has to change, let's be honest. But as long as Vince is in charge, because we know Triple H is capable of making magic. Look at NXT UK, look at 205 Live, look at NXT. They're all great promotions. I know Raw is a different beast, but I'm sure it would definitely be a different, situation if he was in charge instead of Vince. Because maybe even Triple H is in charge of SmackDown more than Vince is, and that's why SmackDown makes more sense more often than not, and it's a better show more often than not. So, again, I think it's also a case of fans expecting too much. The AJ Nakamura match, they had an amazing match at Wrestle Kingdom a few years ago, and we had the WrestleMania rematch, and I think people got their hopes up a little too high, myself included. It was still a great match, but it was nowhere near as good as it was going to be. So yeah, high fan expectations are also a part of it, but it's more so WWE just getting lazy and stagnant with how they use people and how they book people. Because they're only going to push the people they want to push. Everyone else can just fuck off in their mind. So it's really unfortunate, but that's just the way it works right now in WWE. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 267 of #AskGSM. Thank you for sending in your questions. If you want to send in a question, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, have a great rest of your week. We'll be back next Wednesday with another all-new episode of #AskGSM. Till then, guys, I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.